So I know we're standing between you and lunch, and we'll try to make it quick, according to the topic. We have more sessions. Oh my goodness. Okay. Then we'll need to make it doubly quick. So like any good data guy, I'll start with some numbers, right? So if you look at the explosive growth of quick commerce, it just does look like it's going to be serious competition for e-commerce. But like we discussed, is it going to replace? Or is it going to complement? Or is it going to be an entirely new business model emerging? So just some headlines from Kantar's iCube, which is a large survey we do among about 1 lakh respondents. And what it showed is that the penetration of online commerce grew by 8% last year, right? And guess what was the number for quick commerce? It tripled. So 200% growth for quick commerce last year. So 1 in 8 online commerce buyers is now a quick commerce buyer as well. And I was just talking to my colleagues here. For many of them, as a proportion of quick commerce, e-commerce is anywhere between, as a proportion of e-commerce, quick commerce is anywhere between 30 to 50%. So a fascinating time in a way, and let's see if quick commerce catches up and crosses, and what could be the business models underlying it, what could be the consumer behaviors underlying that trend. So I'll just start with opening a question to all. So what we see is, in a way, maybe e-commerce guys are joining the trend. So you have Amazon Days coming up. You have Flipkart Minutes, you have Myntra M now, Big Basket now is 80% of their own thing. JioMart is entering the space. So it looks like e-commerce and online retail brands have kind of decided to join the quick commerce bandwagon. So where do you see this going? I mean, do you see this competition? Do you see it complementing? Maybe we start with Vidya.
Thanks for the opportunity and the provocation, whether it's going to, overtake. I think, I'm sure it will vary by category, but I can speak for myself. I obviously represent Mondelez, which is a highly impulse category. We play in snacking. We want to, we believe that it's a expandable category, and we've seen that, right? I mean, that's how penetration for our categories has also gone up. And obviously for us, quick commerce has been a great new platform to sort of explore and drive growth from. For the simple reason that if you look at e-commerce as a platform, the traditional models where deliveries have happened after a period of time, maybe a day later, 2 days later, it doesn't really dovetail into the proposition of wanting to have an impulse product, right? So if I want to have a dessert after lunch, I want it right now. I'm not going to wait for it to come later. And in that sense, quick commerce has really opened up these multiple consumption occasions that perhaps would have been underserved or not served at all in the past. So in that sense, we now open to potential opportunities that are perhaps in the late night snacking space or a post-dinner office dessert snacking space and so on and so forth. So in that sense, it's really opened up the spectrum of our ambition to own multiple snacking moments in a day, and hence, significantly changed the game for us as far as e-commerce is concerned.
Bhaskar.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Attic, for having me. And it's a very exciting question, right? Will quick com be the way Indians will shop? So I just want to start with the consumer, right? What quick com is able to do, and we are observing, is a change in consumer behavior where it has taken the cognitive load of doing a shopping list from the mind of the shopper, right? I think that we're seeing that change, and hence it's a trend that will sustain. The second point here for us is that we are seeing in if you look at the top 10% of Indian households, which is top 30 million households, who are willing to pay a bit of premium for higher convenience and are used to buying stuff on e-com. I think this gives you many more reasons and consumption occasions and better assortment and discovery, local discovery. So again, that also gives us a real indication that this trend is going to continue. So we have seen channels evolve from general trade to modern trade to e-commerce, e-commerce now to quick commerce. And modern trade did not eliminate general trade, and e-commerce did not eliminate modern trade. And I think all channels will play a part, because India as a country is omnichannel in nature. Even in the most advanced sectors like smartphones, e-com is only 53%, right? There is a ceiling there on that front. Offline will have an advantage in India. So I think all channels will coexist. But what I genuinely believe is that in the top 100 cities in India, this will be the preferred way to shop for majority of the Indians. And in some categories, quick commerce will overtake e-commerce as the natural way to shop. And also it will expand its range from grocery to many other sectors. And we are seeing with majority of our partners in quick com, even non-FMCG is also becoming 20 to 30% of the total GMV, right? So I think the assortment will increase, the ability, and they're more agile in meeting the local consumer demand. So it is a trend that will stay and only get better, but all channels will coexist is my view.
Thank you. And you're a pioneer of, as a D2C brand and already driving online commerce in general. How do you see quick commerce?
So I think, Dipendra, again, taking a cue from Bhaskar, every channel or the emergence of every channel, or maybe borrowing from another channel, always has a core consumer need space or occasion at the heart of it. While retail saw slower movement from GT to MT in the early 2000s, and people thought GT is dead. It never will be, right? And we saw modern trade also settling and, building its own space. And of course, e-commerce came in, and, there's a very quick transition towards e-com, especially for about 50% of the households, fueled by COVID. I think, again, quick commerce, when you look at metro towns, high urban, high youth population, like he said, taking off the cognitive load is quite an obvious chosen sort of method or route of for e-com. But I think what we're also seeing emerging is that there are very clearly there are different categories that tend to over-index, for us at least, on quick com. So very early reads, but a baby category, for example, right, tends to be over-indexed. Suddenly you're short of diapers, you need them now, right? Or we've seen a category like dry shampoos being big on quick commerce, much bigger on quick commerce than any other category, because you have an instant need. Again, things like travel packs, sunscreens are over-indexed there. I think what will be interesting is with all of this competition, of course the category is boomed. It's plus 200% growth for all of us. But the interesting thing is, as more and more players come in, what's the differentiation that each player within this subcategory offers to the consumers and the brands, which kind of continues its relevance. So there's obviously a lot of advertising that we're already seeing on some of these platforms come up. But yeah, so interesting times.
Yep. Chandan.
Well, so if you were to kind of, look at the whole space in India, first of all, India is still medium to low penetration in many categories. And in terms of per capita consumption, we are still on the lower side. So I think there is space for all different channels in order to serve consumer needs. And therefore, they will all coexist. Now, Q-commerce can be over-indexed in certain categories, like was said before, and e-commerce could be over-indexed in certain categories, because they fundamentally operate on different kind of business models, and they operate on different kinds of ways in which they serve consumer needs. So you do see categories like electronics or home decor or some other categories where range and variety and width of options available could still be a little bit high on e-commerce. And then on quick commerce, especially in FMCG categories, you would have a lot of over-indexing because you could meet consumer needs almost kind of immediately or in the next few minutes and so on. At the back end, of course, you need very different, there's some aspects of technology which are quite similar, that you need very high technological usage to understand or to get to transactions or consumer relationship management or inventory, logistics, supply chain and all of that. The demands on technology are much higher in quick commerce because you're operating with dark stores and high density urban areas. You need to go back and sort of, have the right range assortment to be able to meet consumer needs very, very quickly. And for that, you need much more sort of more real-time AI, ML and other tools. So on the business model side, there would be more differences between the two with some commonalities. But I think it's again proves a point that consumer is king or consumer is queen, that the consumer is getting served, in different ways, and therefore quick commerce continues to be very important for FMCG. Is fast growing. We are seeing a lot of exponential growth, and is likely to be. But will it replace? No, I think there'll be coexistence. There would be different players in different categories, and they would still be very, very relevant.
I would almost say the consumer is getting spoiled. So I was having lunch at a friend's place, and he wanted hot jalebis. I think, Vidya, you were talking about desserts, right? So he didn't even order before the meal. He ordered somewhere after we had started eating. Ki garam jalebi aane chahiye. So that is what I would call like getting spoiled. So just talking about real-time data, I think Google is king when it comes to that. Bhaskar, what are anything surprising, anything interesting that you see coming up in search data? That's one question. Secondly, how are you facilitating the quick commerce growth by partnering with them?
Yeah. So firstly, we are doing a lot of work to understand consumer behavior, and let me just throw some light on like how we see, the impulse and snacking and essentials are the first entry points into quick commerce. However, as we see, we also discussed some categories where it will overtake e-commerce and become the most preferred way to buy. And those categories for us, in our research, is looking at kitchen essentials, stationery, proteins. These are the sectors where people are really, really making it like a more of a preferred medium of sorts. At the same time, I think grocery and consumer essentials will continue to be a mainstay as we go forward. In terms of channels, from our research, and some of it we partnered with Kantar as well, right, to understand what is the interplay between general trade, modern trade, and e-commerce with the quick commerce. We see a mid-single-digit interference with the general trade, like say 4-5% is the interaction, where of that is moving to quick commerce. But when it comes to e-commerce, the interplay ranges between like a 20 to 30% in some sectors. When it comes to, more importantly, modern trade, the interaction is actually almost 20%. So what is happening is that people are going to e-commerce for deals, discounts on a special days, known products, known brands at discount on special days, and quick com for convenience, immediate delivery, but also discovering new products in my locality, the role that modern trade used to do. In fact, you can say quick commerce is also like quick trade, right? Literally, you're discovering what are the trending bread, what is the most trending bread in my locality, which is available, which most people are ordering. And also, given the entry price point is less, like $100 or $200, people are also willing to try and buy. So, as I say, I think at a channel level, there is an interplay with different channels. At a consumer level, category level, there is an interplay with different aspects. To your second question on what are we doing to work with quick commerce partners, at many levels. Of course, we are an acquisition engine for them to recruit customers, engage customers, and drive transactions. So that continues to be a mainstay. Apart from that, we know for a fact that we are privileged to see consumers are always shopping, streaming, scrolling, searching on our platforms across search, YouTube, and many shopping properties. So how do we aggregate this demand and make sure that partners like Nestle, Mamaearth, like when they want to drive clicks to quick commerce, and understand the ROAS and so on and so forth. We're working on a new product called Performance Max for marketplaces with partnerships with the quick com companies, so that there is a more seamless way to discover, and when it drives performance on quick com, it is another new way to customer acquisition from their side. So that's we believe is a good way to build this ecosystem, because even advertising is a key part of the profitability play for quick commerce companies, and we are partnering in that zone.
Thank you. I mean, it's fascinating. I think it's very evident from the comments that these two things are feeding off each other. You know, consumer desire for convenience and impulse is feeding quick commerce, which in turn is feeding with the growth of technology and AI. It's further feeding more discovery, more desire for convenience. And I think we were having a discussion, almost consumer laziness, right? And you were talking about the cognitive load. You know, why bother making a shopping list when you can do everything last minute?
Yeah, and also the number of occasions that Quickcom is able to create for a Raksha Bandhan, for a Mother's Day, and so on and so forth are like so many more micro moments can be activated, and that is also a big advantage for users to try.
So just thinking about the relationship of brands with consumers and thinking about how you built brands, and there's a question to both to Chandan and Vidya. How are you dealing with the new way of brand building on these platforms? And do you think they are in some ways kind of discouraging brand loyalty and encouraging promiscuous behaviors? As owners of large established brands, do you see this as an opportunity, or do you see it as a mixed blessing? Any thoughts?
Well, I think it's an opportunity at the end of the day, because like I was saying, you know, with our kind of penetration across categories and with the kind of low per capita consumption levels, for many categories and brands in India, there's still a big opportunity. And if you're able to get fulfillment in a much quicker way through quick commerce, it only adds to the opportunity out there, and therefore you can also fulfill it. Now, obviously, there could be more, you know, sort of competition, and there could be different brands and so on and so forth. So it also enables brands to be more agile and try and see, you know, how we can connect with the consumer at the end of the day. And therefore, that comes back to more fundamental brand building. And more fundamental brand building is not only on e-commerce and quick commerce. It is done in a variety of ways. And therefore, the whole end-to-end brand building becomes very, very important. There are also, of course, you know, more specific tools like Bhaskar talked about performance and PMax and shoppable and collabs and so on and so forth, which you could use in the right way to be able to fulfill a demand. Like, for example, you know, we have a brand called KitKat, which is all about taking breaks. And there is probably no better way that when you feel like having a break, you get it fulfilled on quick commerce almost immediately. You know, you're sitting in an office and you wish to take a break and want to make that break a little more enjoyable sometimes, and that sometimes could be with a KitKat, you could do that. So therefore, it also leads to more opportunities at the end of the day. But of course, to keep in mind that brand building is more holistic and there are more opportunities that come along. I think it's more about, you know, if you look at quick commerce, it's also about the logistics and the back end and the supply chain. For example, you know, if you go into a quick commerce store which promises delivery in 10 minutes, the average time it takes in the store between the time an order comes in to the time that the order goes out of the store is about 1 minute or less. So when somebody promises, you know, 10 or 15 minutes delivery, the operation in the store is about 1 minute on an average. The average basket value is about 5 brands or 5 different products. So therefore, it's also important to be meaningful and salient so that, you know, the categories and the brands are in that top 5, and the logistics and the back end have to also talk to getting that delivery and getting the assortment out in that 1 minute. So therefore, there are other, you know, elements of the entire challenge which come into play, but it's a much bigger opportunity than what we think.
Yep. And as large brands, you know, the number of SKUs in a, you know, small dark store is by its nature limited. So I would imagine in some ways, big, large, salient brands which have a greater consumer demand in the first place could could be the ones to benefit as well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. While quick commerce is about, quick and speedy delivery, there's also a range and variety which is played by e-commerce. You have a much wider range, much more variety, more choices. So therefore, the two play to different dimensions.
Sorry, Vidya. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was just reflecting on the point you made on loyalty. I think I wouldn't frame this as a loyalty question. I think whenever we've had emerging channels come in, whether it was modern trade, e-commerce, etc., there was always this perceived threat that market leaders would have, saying that, hey, your market share here might be lower because there is more access to newer brands that each of these channels provides. And I think there is reality in that. So I would argue that quick commerce does provide easier access to, let's say, smaller brands, D2C brands, if they get in the right margins and spends going in. But I think, like I said, the opportunity is more for us to be present to that shopper who's seeking that snacking product at that point of time in a more personalized manner. So a static offline store allows me to present to every user in one particular way. But today an e-commerce platform will show you a different, a quick commerce platform will show you a different experience of my brand versus me, basis our behaviors, which I think is a massive unlock for us, right? Because we have to build capabilities within our organization to be able to create content, to be able to create offers, to be able to create price packs, which are then relevant, which means that we have to build, agility is a much oft repeated word, but I'll use that again, saying that how do we prepare ourselves for that opportunity? And hence the whole point about saying, hey, what's that headroom to grow share, to grow occasions? Significantly higher for us. We have to constantly keep pace because, this channel has sort of evolved in the last 18 to 24 months, and they are adding capabilities much faster than we could probably fulfill. So, if this was a channel which was more around ROAS and, what is a conversion, now you have capabilities which I would argue sit in the middle funnel space, right, to drive a higher consideration. Today, any quick com platform can show you a very nice video asset. Maybe you will not convert there. You might go and convert in an offline platform. So the onus is on me to convince my marketing teams to say that, hey, look at this as a platform which is beyond just conversion. And I also want to talk about the supply chain bit, right? And I think this is very relevant when it comes to high throughput periods like festivals, for example, or Valentine's Day, which is huge for chocolates as a category. Because of the ability of dark store to not be able to store as much product at any given point of time, how do I ensure that I don't lose that demand? Which means that I have to tell my supply chain folks to supply as often. A lot of it is not going to be structurally beneficial from a cost perspective, but that's the foundation I am laying for a future where, I'm going to be available to that customer at all points of time, which is where my advantage of being a large organization versus a D2C would be in terms of my ability to consistently deliver, be available, not go out of stock, always be on the platform during a key period. So I think some of those things we are learning. It's great for us because the benefits then can go into other channels as well. So I wouldn't look at it so much from a loyalty perspective. I think we're fairly confident of the work that we're doing in, like he said, the outside of quick com world to build the brand. The challenge is to ensure that loyalty or whatever, that equity translates into conversion through all the other activities on backend that we can do to ensure that we are, platform ready, so to speak.
Excellent point. I think that's the, it's brand building, but it's also business models and supply chains and, the entirety of it all. Like as an organization, everybody's learning so much along the way because of this. So just, so far we've been talking as brand owners or, data owners as Google, but just looking outside in, and I know we don't have any of the quick commerce platform players here on stage, but what do you think about the promiscuity of consumers when it comes to different quick commerce brands? How often do they, are they loyal to these different brands? If so, Yes, no, and how do you see things shaking out within the sector? I mean, everybody says that finally maybe it'll be a couple of players. But right now there are lots of players, lots of cash burn. Thoughts, comments on how do you see that progressing?
Yeah. So I'll give it a shot. See, firstly, as I said, this is a very new phenomena, and jury is still out. Yeah, it is. Is there a path to profitability? Definitely, people believe so, right? Which is why the investor money is chasing that, right? Ultimately, there is going to also be a ceiling in terms of how many number of players will survive and ensure that there is sustainable profitability for the business. And the way Quickcom evolved initially is like, hey, maybe Blinkit is very popular in NCR and Zepto in Mumbai, and they had geographical advantages. But if you look at the top 3 players are definitely in a race to get to the top 100 cities at faster, get to 1,000 stores faster, right? So there will be even Stevens over a period of time. And then clearly brand will and servicing and so on, the other aspects will definitely play a role. But I think today Indian consumer is so smart. I think he or she is actually checking all the 3 platforms and going for the best deal, right? I think that will continue. But yes, there are a lot more players apart from the top 3 Quickcom guys to kind of solve for quick commerce, including the e-com marketplaces and Nykas of the world, etc. We'll see how this evolves. But yes, there is going to be a ceiling at some point. How quickly will we get there? As of now, it looks like the top 100 cities, top 20, 25 million households, maybe 30 million users, transacting users is where the opportunity is actually the highest, and still there is some time for that to go.
Anuja?
I think, firstly, in the era that we are in, Dipinder, multiple holy grails are being challenged, right? So you can't just build a brand and assume that people will remain loyal to it forever. And in some sense, I think these different models, e-com, quick commerce, different channels, consumer cohorts, there are multi-generational cohorts as we speak, right? I think it's all keeping the brands at their toes to constantly reinvent themselves and be relevant every day. So, no 2 days are going to be similar, right? When we look at data, we say that, hey, what can we do better for the Quickcom buyer? When that buyer comes on e-com, does that same buyer's need state change, right? So is an e-com buyer, let's say, are they coming to a vertical platform like Nykaa and searching for serums? But when that same buyer needs a sunscreen now, is going to an e-commerce, right? So to a quick commerce, right? So I think there's no room for complacency anymore in the name of loyalty. But I think what's interesting is that the use cases are evolving. I think brands have a lot of headroom to now even play on quick commerce beyond just availability and and pricing, but in terms of on-platform visibility. Sampling has been a huge use case, right? So we've seen some of the retention rates being the highest on quick commerce on brands sampled on e-commerce, on quick commerce. Category creation. So we just recently did an intervention with Zepto where we helped build the relevance of sunscreen as category, and in the bargain, of course, talked about all our brands and that spread into sunscreens. But I think as a marketer, I would think that we're being challenged, every day, and it's a great win-win for the consumer end of the day, right? Whether it's discounts, value, assortment, I think they have a lot to choose from.
Yeah. So, I mean, we do a lot of work for quick commerce brands as well, and looking at their brands. And I think what we are discovering is, look, finally a consumer has all of them on their phones. And like Bhaskar was saying, they will compare prices. Right? Sometimes we are joking, they spend more time comparing prices than the time it will take for the order to come, right? But one of the things we are learning is that the brands which are meaningfully different, right? Because everything is on your phone as far as the quick commerce brands go. The ones which build meaning, either through trust or quicker deliveries or, whatever be their proposition or assortment. And the ones which stand out are unique. They are the ones which will, prosper in the long term, in addition to how much cash they're able to rustle up from, investors.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add one point on that. I think it feels like there is a shopper behavior shift that has happened. So if you look at the trinity of convenience, value, assortment, as far as a shopper is concerned, somewhere, we always believe that discount value is what consumers are looking for. There is a cohort, like he said, which is definitely looking at convenience as a key need that is being solved for. What that number is going to be, we don't know. But to the extent that they're willing to pay a convenience charge, a handling fee, there are new occasions that they're shopping for. So from our perspective, it might sound a little selfish, but from our perspective, the shopper behavior for sure has shifted. How many players will exist, etc., is not very clear at this point of time. But I do feel that this is not, in that sense, a fad. This seems to be a behavior, a benefit, a genuine need that has been tapped into. Whether it is in dense urban populations or areas where people are willing to look at premium products. Premium is a category that's definitely doing well here. So it could be a combination of that, but seems like a behavior that's here to stay.
So just on that point, like a behavior that will stick, maybe a bit more on that theme, but also what do you think could trip this up, right? Any thoughts on that? I think Chandan, you were...
Well, I think, there's a huge scope for category expansion because you are sort of, fulfilling needs in a much quicker way. So therefore, that could really kind of unlock new opportunities and unlock new growth vistas. On your point on differentiation, it's the same thing like differentiation in any FMCG category. Yeah. There's so many brands out there in every category, and there's, of course, who's different and who has a stronger and tighter value proposition to the consumer on the aspects that drive, really choice and consumer demand. So I think that will very much be a part of it. I think the key thing which will unlock it further will be, how do you have the right business model at the back end to be able to serve the consumer need in the front end in the most seamless manner so that it's a win-win and it's a very operationally right model which works both from a consumer and the platform as well as manufacturers and consumer goods or other kinds of companies who are supplying to them. I think this sweet spot or this equation is the one which requires changes from all three ends. Probably the least change from the consumer side because for a consumer it's a win-win already. But quite a few changes from the manufacturer end in terms of how they look at the opportunity and how they gear themselves up. And similarly from the platform end on how do you really leverage all the technology and the tools to be able to manage the best assortment for the consumer at the right moment.
Yeah, so the optimist in me actually believes that quick commerce will be India's export to the world in the way commerce is actually delivered profitably over time. I genuinely think that that's an opportunity for all of us to invent a new way to do business well. But the realist in me also feels that, see, the starting point of e-com, which is still not profitable, is high GMV categories like tech and smartphones and electronics. The starting point was there, and they wanted to capture the last bastion, which is grocery, at the end, because whoever wins the grocery game is the king of commerce. That is the only way.
$500 billion right? Out of the $1 trillion.
Yes, yeah. And then now the quick commerce companies have started with grocery, but they are also adding the other sectors and and all of it, and ultimately the dark store only has 2,000 SKUs, to be very precise. So inventory continues to be a big play, and how do you really navigate that game? Because ultimately there will be a point. The reason why e-com is still not profitable are the same reasons which will actually haunt or push the profitability for e-com as they also expand into other categories. The starting points could be different, but they will converge at some point. So who plays this journey better would probably have a higher chance to sustain a profitable business.
I see we have 30 minutes, so just a quick one. When do you, so currently quick commerce is 1/10 of e-commerce in terms of value. When do you see it becoming half, Chandan, let's say? And everybody could have a shot at that.
I think fairly quickly, in 2 to 3 years, we could see, at least in consumer goods, becoming half.
Yeah, since we're just taking a punt here, I think in the next three to 4 years, most certainly, with more profitability, hopefully.
I think even earlier than that, probably end of next year. Maybe.
So definitely for the categories that you already...
Maybe I'm at one end of the optimism spectrum, but for sure.
So, I mean, I think the final thing is that the consumer is king, and this is benefiting the consumer, and whoever does a better job of meeting and delighting consumer needs, spoiling them, is going to be a winner. And I think looks like quick commerce is very much on the way. It was lovely to get a very diverse set of perspectives from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. If I could request all the speakers to please come forward.